Next man up, 102.5, The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. It is a Reaction Monday, brought to you by Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville. Hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. Parker, what's going on? How was your weekend?
What's up, Jake? I woke up this morning, and I kid you not, I heard something that sounded like hoofbeats off in the distance, and I think that is football season.
Hey, it is game week.
Close.
It is game week here in Nashville for the first time since early January. The Titans have a game coming up 3 days from now in Santa Clara, taking on the 49ers in a joint practice tomorrow. I believe it's noon. Our time is when it gets going, so we won't be on the air during the practice, being on the West Coast Pacific time, but we will have all the reaction to that, and I am excited to see what that looks like, even with the substation looming over everything that's going to go on tomorrow in Santa Clara. I heard Robbie and Joe talking about it. You just got to hope and pray that there's no injuries tomorrow, because that is the only thing people are going to talk about is the substation playing its part once again. The Niners, with all their injuries, if a Titans player gets hurt, we're never going to hear the end of it.
So are you buying into that theory? Because I heard him talking about it on Weekend Huddle over the weekend, and I think Brandon and Nick both were buying into it. I'm not sure if I can get that far. Robert Saleh said on Friday that he thinks it's overblown, but I expect him to say that.
Right, I'm not fully buying in on the conspiracy theory that it's the electric substation that's causing all of this. And because football, you're going to get injured. I do think that it is strange how many injuries the Niners have year over year over year. It's like they've had maybe one season that they've been relatively healthy over the past half decade. And that was the year they went to the Super Bowl with Purdy. The 2 years that I think they've been pretty healthy, they've actually made it to the Super Bowl both times. But every other year, it's like Nick Bosa goes down with an injury. He's out for the year. Fred Warner, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey. It's like every year there's somebody who gets hurt and has to miss a significant portion of the season. I'm not saying I'm buying in on it completely, but I do think that people are going to continue to tie the substation to the injuries as long as they're still practicing right next to it.
I don't buy into conspiracy theories really, but it is odd how this keeps happening. But I mean, this sort of similar thing happened with the Titans, where you had that couple-year stretch where they were just riddled with injuries. The Lions on defense over the last couple of years, just injuries throughout the roster. I mean, it could boil down to how they exercise, like in the weight room, their strength coach, some of the soft tissue recovery, like that could play a factor into all this. I'm not buying into the conspiracy, but it definitely is odd.
It's strange just because of how often this happens to the 49ers, where lots of soft tissue injuries, guys missing, 3/4 of the season, big time ACL, Achilles injuries. And you do see injuries across the league. Like you mentioned, the Titans had the 2 years in a row where they played the most players in NFL history, or whatever it was, in 2020 and 2021. And then the Lions last year, their defense was decimated by injuries. The Chargers, their offensive line was decimated by injuries. Injuries happen everywhere. It's just been strange how consistent the Niners have been one of the most injured teams across the NFL.
I also am not smart enough to speak on if being next to a substation, I can't explain that to you. Right. So I have no idea. They did have scientists, I guess, come out there and run some tests, and they discovered that nothing that has no relation whatsoever to the injuries. I have no idea whether that's true or not, or how to contradict it. If I don't think, I'm just not buying into it, but it is strange.
Nobody knows anything of whether this is actually something, or as John Lynch said, it's a nothing burger. But I can tell you for certain, if a Titans player gets hurt tomorrow, that's what's going to be blamed, is that they were practicing next to the substation. So we'll talk plenty about the Titans joint practice coming up tomorrow against the 49ers. Preseason game number 1 coming up on Thursday. We'll also spend a lot of time on the 2 practices over the weekend, the scrimmage at Nissan Stadium and yesterday's practice, where Cam Ward, I think you're starting to see him trend in the right direction, and we'll get to that in a second. But Parker, I was in Clarksville on Saturday for the Arena Crown Championship. Did you see the way that this game ended between the Nashville Cats and the Albany Firebirds?
Oh my gosh, it was everywhere. It was even reposted by Barstool. What an incredible into that game.
I have never seen anything like it in any level of football. I mean, the closest thing that I could come up with was 1 yard short for the Titans in the Super Bowl back in 99 season, 2000 Super Bowl. And this time it worked in the favor of the Nashville team. That's the closest thing I can remember to it. It was a back and forth game the entire way. The Cats actually led 30-8. Albany came all the way back, took the lead. It was going back and forth, tied at 53, and the Cats score with under a minute to go. And a lot of people were upset about the next call made by the Cats. They decided to go with an onside kick. And that, I got it, like why they thought that was the right idea of you can allow them to score, because in arena football, the offense is going to dominate for the most part.
It's a 50-yard field?
Right. It's a 50-yard field. So they gave them the ball at the 9-yard line with 50 seconds left or so, and the Cats had 2 timeouts. I think you're hoping that there's an incomplete pass. Maybe they score quickly. You get the ball back with a chance to go win it. But they ended up running it 3 times. The Cats called their timeouts. So there's 3 seconds on the clock. 4th and goal from, I said the 1 foot line on the air, and I think that's about what it was. You could not have gotten the football much closer to the goal line, and the quarterback for Albany goes over the top. No one will ever know if he actually got the football over the line.
I don't know how he didn't get in if they were on the 1 foot line.
He got pushed back, so he stretched it, but there wasn't a view, like a replay view right down the line, so you couldn't really tell. And I have no idea how he had the mental wherewithal as he's getting pushed back and falling to the ground, tried to throw it to one of his receivers, and it went right off his fingertips. Incomplete, game over, Cats win. I have never seen anything like it. It was absolute chaos in Clarksville on Saturday.
Think about it. They had 2 chances in 1 play to win the game.
Right.
One, you're going over the top, which if you're that close, you kind of have to get in. But at the same time, to land back, throw off a 1 foot, and if you're that receiver, you're beating yourself up,
right? Because
it literally went right off your hands. And it doesn't get much easier than that because there was nobody in your area.
Yeah, and that was the game. Like if he caught that, or if Castronova, the quarterback, got the football in, they kicked the extra point, which not a gimme. The Cats had blocked 2 extra points in the game already, but you kick the extra point and you're the champions. It was an unbelievable game, unbelievable experience, sold out crowd in Clarksville. Jeff Jarrett with one of the craziest mid-quarter promotions I've ever seen. They were honoring a longtime fan. I think his name is Eddie McGrew, and 30-year fan of the Cats. They're honoring him. And they have this Albany fan who's getting in the way, and Jeff Jarrett pulls him onto the field and starts wrestling, fake punching him. And
that's incredible.
They put him on a table, and Cool Cat, the mascot, climbs up on a ladder and elbow drops on the Albany fan in between the 3rd and 4th quarter.
Do you think that was planned and scripted the whole time?
100%.
Okay.
100%. I mean, that
would have been better if it wasn't.
That's Jeff Jarrett just being a phenomenal promoter and entertainer. I have never seen anything like that. I've never seen anything like the ending. For anyone who was up there, that was just a phenomenal day, and the Cats take home the title. They are AF1 crown champions. And you're right, the clip went viral. Barstool posted it. I've seen it posted a lot of places because that was one of the most insane endings to a football game I've ever seen.
Yeah, and they got their get back from last year because this was a rematch.
Right.
So the game last year was in Albany, right?
It was in Albany, yeah, and the Cats lost by 3.
Yeah, it comes to Nashville and they win. Man, that's just a fantastic ending to a football game. And congratulations to the Cats. They got their revenge and they're AF1 champs.
And guess what? It was 8-8 was the day, which some Titans fans have affectionately titled Jeff Fisher Day because a lot of 8-8 records for Jeff Fisher. And Jeff Fisher, one of the owners, the commissioner of AF1, gets his championship on Saturday against the Albany Firebirds. It was so cool to be there for that, to be on the call. Me and Nick Frazier, Chase and Big Joe had the call on the TV side. It was a really fun day, and congratulations to the Cats for their championship. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'd love to hear from you. Our phone and text line driven by Wilson County Hyundai, online at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. Lots to get to on the show today. It is a Reaction Monday. We're going to react to the 2 Titans practices over the weekend. Cam Ward, maybe his 2 best practices of training camp so far. We'll talk about that. Julian Mininsohn from News 2 will join us at 9:30 to talk Titans as well. We'll also talk some Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame class inducted over the weekend. the 2027 list of first-year eligible players is really interesting, and I want to get Parker's thoughts and your thoughts as well on who deserves to be in on their first ballot. Going to be a fun show today, 615-737-1025, off and running on this Reaction Monday. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you. The Cats took home the title on Saturday. We just went through the crazy ending in Clarksville. Nashville Cats get the first professional championship in Nashville history. Do we count it that way?
I feel like we kind of have to. we're
That's going to stir
we don't really
up.
have a choice.
That'll stir up some people. Yeah, I mean, obviously arena football, not the highest level of football.
I mean, we have to at the station.
Yeah, right. Like
I
it's
we're the flagship.
Right, we're the flagship of the Cats.
We kind of have to.
And again, if you were there, that crowd was fantastic, and they were into it. People were celebrating like their team just won the Super Bowl, which, I mean, if you're a diehard Cats fan, I guess it must have felt like that. So it was cool to be up there. Let's talk some Titans here, though, as training camp rolls along. Joint practice tomorrow in Santa Clara with the 49ers, but 2 practices over the weekend. Parker, you were there for the scrimmage on Friday at Nissan Stadium, and by all accounts, I wanted to go out there when the weather started to get a little bit hairy. I decided against it. I said, you know what? I don't want to go all the way out there and have to turn right back around if there's lightning or something. So I stayed back. But you were out there with Connor Parker. It seems like the big takeaway was that was one of Cam Ward's best practices. Started 16 of 17 throwing the football. Big plays to Carnell Tate, a touchdown to Gunnar Helm. Seemed like he was really dialed in for that scrimmage on Thursday night or Friday night.
Okay, so I do want to clarify, because I was not at every single practice last year, but for every practice that I've attended and been there in person to watch, that was the best practice I've ever seen from Cam Ward. He was hitting that back foot, getting the ball out quickly, making the right decision, which the only thing that Saleh has emphasized is benchmarks that we want to see from Cam Ward in training camp. Is he making the right decision play in and play out? Brian Daboll has emphasized that as well during his press conferences last week. But Cam Ward was doing that. And he was on time, hitting that back foot, getting the ball out, seeing the field. One thing that I was really proud of Cam Ward, he was hitting his checkdowns. And those checkdowns often turned into big gains. Like he hit Tajay Spears. I think he hit Michael Carter on a play. And they ended up going for like 20 yards. And that he made it all the way through his progressions, hit his check down. And instead of, just picking up the first down, they got the first down and more. So that's what happens when you're making the right decisions. Was really proud of Cam Ward. There were a couple things that I would have tweaked, if we were watching film together. But other than that, he was phenomenal.
Yeah, and yesterday it seems like the big takeaways were that he had another strong practice, hit Carnell Tate for 3 touchdowns early in the day, and that connection seems to be heating up like you hoped it would. Tate and Ward, you saw big plays yesterday in practice, and then, of course, Friday, the one-handed grab from Carnell Tate was just absolutely sensational. Over the middle, maybe not the most accurate throw from Cam Ward, but gave his guy a chance. And Carnell Tate, you saw the ability, the size of his hands just to snatch that one on the run and keep on moving.
I just don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out with Cam Ward because he's still so early on in his career. Is Cam Ward a precision passer, or is he more of a gunslinger? I tend to think that he's more of a gunslinger right now because that pass was off target, but Carnell Tate bailed him out and made an incredible catch. So Cam Ward did have a lot of accurate moments. I mean, you don't start 16 of 17 and not be accurate with the football, but I was standing right there when that Carnell Tate play happened. And I kid you not, my mouth was on the field and I turn around and everybody else has the same reaction. And we're like, oh, here we go.
Yep.
Because Ohio State receivers tend to work out in the NFL regardless of who you are, where you get drafted. He was great on that first drive. I think he had 2 catches. He picked up a first down on his first catch, then had the one-hander. I mean, he was making a lot of plays, and he's really starting to come on, especially this last week.
Yeah, and yesterday the Titans posted the couple of touchdowns that he had. Cam Ward hit him over top of Alontae Taylor for the first one. The second one against Marcus Harris was really impressive, the way he fought through contact to get to that football. Like, Harris jammed him at the line. There was hand fighting back and forth, but Tate stayed physical and made sure he got to the spot where Cam Ward was throwing it to and went up and made a great catch. Carnell Tate, I think the consensus from a lot of people, not just locally, but nationally, was maybe he's not a top 5 guy. But there's a reason we're not the ones making the decisions. And I think, at least right now, before he's played a single game, you look back and you say, all right, maybe we were missing something off what he did at Ohio State, because a lot of people looked at it and said, well, Jeremiah Smith is the number 1. He's the number 2. How can you be a top 5 pick? And that's probably not the best argument that we could have made against Carnell Tate. And seeing him in practice so far, the big plays that he had, the long touchdown back on Tuesday, the one-handed grab on Friday, the 3 touchdowns yesterday, Carnell Tate looks like he's going to be a real playmaker for this team, even as a rookie.
Absolutely. I was one of those guys. I'm like, yeah, I'd absolutely take him in the top 10. Top 4?
It felt high.
Yeah, that did feel high. Everything that comes in his vicinity, though, when the football's in the air, he just comes down with. That's the best way to describe it. Even if it's a contested catch, even if there's a guy like Alontae Taylor, like a Cordell Flott, or Marcus Harris even draped all over him, if that ball is within arm length reach of Carnell Tate, he will come down with the football. And that's the thing that's been so impressive to me watching him.
Yeah, and you got to see it in games. He's got to actually produce when the lights come on and you're playing real football in September, October, and beyond. But in terms of first impression, second impression throughout offseason work and into training camp, Carnell Tate has passed a lot of tests with flying colors so far. Cam Ward, we talked about it leading up to training camp, about the offseason work. You saw progression, but it wasn't quite as good as you hoped it would be. I think the good news that you'll see so far, and just like I said with Tate, it's still just practice. You've got to see him do it in the real games and show that progression when you get to the regular season. But we talked about in training camp, you want to see progression from him. You want to see growth day by day, practice by practice. And I think really since the pads have come on, these 5 practices that we've gotten to see, you've seen it. Every day, it's been a little bit better. He had the interceptions on Monday, was able to take care of the football. I don't believe he's turned the football over since then.
I don't think he had any turnovers yesterday. Definitely didn't have any turnovers on Friday.
Right. Tuesday, it was kind of an up and down day Tuesday, but he had the big play to Carnell Tate. Thursday, he had a big day in the red zone with a few touchdowns through the air, one on the ground. Friday, you said maybe the best practice that you've seen from Cam Ward in his 2 years with the Titans. And then yesterday, hitting Carnell Tate for 3 touchdowns, seemed like he was sharp from start to finish. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be a superstar this year, but I do think it's good to see exactly what we talked about. Day by day, you're seeing him look more comfortable. He's playing faster, and you hope that that continues through the preseason. And then when the Jets roll in on September 13th, he's really feeling like he's clicking and in a good spot with this Brian Daboll system.
And there was a bad taste in everybody's mouth with the way OTAs and with the way minicamp went, with Cam Ward missing a lot of the deep passes, missing some layups. Now, he's missed some layups. He's missed some deep balls once training camp is start, but he had the long touchdown to Carnell Tate that was like 65 yards. I think that was on Tuesday with the pads on.
Yep.
Had a fantastic practice during the Blue and White Scrimmage on Friday. Had a great practice yesterday. So there's momentum building for Cam Ward. Now you get to go play against San Francisco's defense. Injured, but still really good defense. You get Seattle the week after that, and you get the Bears. So you get to play against 3 really good defenses. So that'll be a good litmus test about where you are.
Yeah, and as we've talked about, we've seen growth throughout these practices against his own team. Now you really get to those benchmarks, those tests. All right, 49ers tomorrow in a joint practice. Can you continue to look sharp and make the right decisions? I think something that really has stood out to me with Cam Ward is he is more willing to run the football. And again, with Brian Daboll, he has a lot of running quarterbacks that you've looked through. Josh Allen ran the football a lot of designed runs. Even Daniel Jones became a lot more of a runner once Brian Daboll showed up. Jackson Dart ran the football a lot. I don't think Cam Ward's going to be that kind of player where they're drawing up QB power for Cam Ward and just letting him run the football 15 times a game. But being a more willing runner is something we've talked about a ton on this show. And I think since Monday, when he was rolling out and tried to make a play back over the middle of the field and throw the pick, I think maybe that was the wake-up call. As Brian Daboll said, lesson learned of sometimes I've just got to take what I can get and live to see another play. And a lot of that is just, hey, if there's nothing downfield or if you feel like you're putting the ball in harm's way, if you try and make a play on the run, just take what you can get. And I think we've seen that from Cam Ward over the last few practices is he's been more willing to just tuck it and run and take whatever's available to him.
When Brian Daboll talks about we're in charge, and when he says he's talking about the quarterback room, we're in charge of making the right decisions. To me, if it's 3rd and 5 and you're outside the pocket and there's nothing really open downfield, taking off and getting the first down, that would be a right decision. That's a positive because you're living to fight another play, but you pick up the first down and then you allow Daboll to dial up something else rather than trying to force it. Well, drives over. Now here comes the punt unit. That's what I consider to be more of a willing runner because Cam, you're not going to design a lot of plays for him to run the football. You may design a couple here and there, but he's athletic enough. He did this on Friday where he got outside the pocket. There was nothing open. He took off and was actually, I thought a case could be made that he scored but they ruled him a little bit short. That's what, is a positive example of being a willing runner, taking what the defense gives you, even if it is with your legs, making a positive.
Right. And I think you're starting to see just the Cam Ward. You don't want to take the gunslinger out of him, but I do think that he's starting to realize when and where he has to pick his moments. And that's been good. Cam Ward, Carnell Tate, they were the stars of the weekend. And I got to say, that's kind of what we've been waiting for, right, Parker? Like Justin from Greenbrier says on the text line, I heard Robbie say he wants Cam to go out and dominate a few practices and kind of live up to his draft pick. It sounds like he answered the challenge. I agree with Tate and Ward, with where you took those guys in the draft. You do want to have some of those practices where you're like, man, that connection was virtually unstoppable. And it seems like Friday and yesterday specifically, that was the case. And Cam Ward and Carnell Tate really were starting to click. It's good to see. Again, still early, still in the first half of training camp. You got over a month until the first regular season game. But I think this was a really, really important weekend for Cam Ward, taking a step forward. And now you've got to continue that into the joint practices.
Absolutely. And there is momentum for him. And he has reliable targets. I thought Wan'Dale Robinson, which we've talked about for a while, was the safety blanket for him on Friday. Definitely got the most receptions, was always there in a pinch. And now you have Carnell Tate, where if you just give the guy a chance down the field, more than likely he's going to come up with the catch. So you have options. Gunnar Helm, I thought, was great during the scrimmage.
That was an unbelievable catch in the back of the end zone.
Alec Amander's really been coming on as well. He's been the training camp darling so far. Calvin Ridley wasn't as present. I mean, he made a couple catches, but wasn't a huge part of the offense catching the football wise. But I mean, these younger receivers, they look up to guys like Calvin Ridley. So if nothing else, that's a really huge impact, even if it's off the field. But there is momentum for this offense moving into joint practice week.
615-737-1025 is the phone number. Matthew in Nashville asks, are we worried about the substation affecting Titans players? We talked about this to lead off the show a little bit. He says Big Joe and Frazier seem to have a little concern. I'm not concerned about it, but as we said, we do know that if there is an injury, that's what's going to be talked about nonstop. So fingers crossed that tomorrow that everybody stays healthy during the joint practice. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, Julian Mininsohn from News 2 going to join us. We'll talk Titans with Julian, everything that he saw at practice yesterday, and much more. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 1025, The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you on this Monday morning. Titans training camp in full swing tomorrow. Joint practice in Santa Clara with the 49ers. And to help us cover the Titans, we now go to our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And we're joined by Julian Mininsohn from News 2. Julian, thanks for calling in. Appreciate it. How's it going this morning?
Great. Corey is going to be out in Santa Clara doing the game. He's doing sideline for the game on News 2, and that means I get to have the office to myself this week, so that's pretty awesome.
Some peace and quiet for you with Corey out. We feel the same way about Wednesday.
I can imagine.
Julian, you've been out there at Titans practice these past two, the stadium scrimmage on Friday and Sunday. We were just talking about it. Feels like Cam Ward and Carnell Tate, that connection really started to heat up. How have you seen their chemistry, their relationship develop through these first couple of weeks of training camp?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been the thing that everybody's kind of talking about, right? And individually for each of those guys, I mean, number one, I think Cam has really taken command, particularly over these last couple of days. I always go back to using the anecdote of I have a buddy named Miles, good college buddy of mine, and he does not know a lick of sports, and that's okay. Like not everybody in the world is us, right? Not everybody follows sports as closely as we do. But if I took Miles to practice, would he be able to tell who the starting quarterback is going to be, right? Would he be able to pick the guys in the 3 red jerseys out of the bunch and say, hey, that guy looks like the leader of the team? And I think, to his credit, he'd be able to on this Titans team. Not that it was ever a competition to begin with, like this was Cam Ward's job, right? Like Mitch Trubisky and Will Levis were fighting for that backup role. But I think that's kind of the gap that's there with what we've seen Cam progressing through camp. The way he's commanded the team has been really, really good. His decision-making has gotten a lot better and quicker over the last couple of weeks here in camp. And I think even though it was never really a competition, the fact that he looks the part and he's starting to look the part, I think that's a good thing if you're a Titans fan. As for Carnell Tate, what can you say? I mean, that guy has been as good as advertised. I mean, of course, the one-handed catch, I heard you guys talking about it from Friday night. That was probably got the biggest oohs and ahs of the night. And then he had the multiple touchdowns in practice we were watching yesterday. But I think the big thing with him is, I was sitting in the draft room in Pittsburgh when he was taken, and, it got the biggest gasp probably of the night. And, full disclosure, Corey and I were talking to a number of prospects that week, and we didn't even talk to Carnell Tate that much because we were so set on it's going to be Jeremiah Love or it's going to be one of the edge guys. And now we're seeing why we don't get paid to make those decisions. And so, he has looked the part, and I think the biggest thing when it comes to Carnell is you can look the part, but the fact that in 2 weeks of camp, there's been no drop-off. And the fact in the matter of these 2 weeks there of a demanding training camp schedule, he has looked the part and has really actually gotten better and ascended rather than maybe hitting a rookie wall a day or so. And so I think the connection between them is growing, and I think it's a good sign that it seems like you have your quarterback, at least early signs, and you have your guy who's looking like going to be that number 1 receiver.
Julian, a lot of eyes have gone to the interior of the offensive line, the competitions at center and right guard. Have you been able to glean anything from practice on what that might look like, especially at right guard, where it seems like it's not just Cordell Volson, Jackson Slater, but maybe Fernando Carmona also could be considered there?
Yeah, and I'll say this, from a big picture perspective, I think, especially over the last couple of days where the offense has looked good, the offensive line, I think, has performed pretty serviceably, like relative to what our expectations were. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. I could sit up here and say, like, I thought that offensive line this year was going to be a paper mache project, right? Like, a paper mache project in school where you get a bunch of pieces of paper together and throw it together and you hope it's something beautiful. Well, like, I think they have outperformed what we thought they were going to be. Now, it's easy to say that when you're facing the same guys in practice and your teammates every single day. But, Jermaine Johnson on the edge guy said going into the padded practices that the offensive line isn't going to know what hit him. And I think over this past week, you wanted to see how that offensive line was going to respond to a defensive line that's pretty much, without a doubt, the best position group on the squad. And so I think that has been showing up this week. Obviously the offenses look good, the running game has looked good, but from the starting five perspective, I would say that at least how it looks to me right now, that 4 of the 5 spots are solidified. I think Austin Schultman, I think he's been pretty solid at center so far, at least in camp. I think, they're getting a fair shake at right guard. The 3 guys you mentioned, Fernando Carmona, Cordell Volson, and Jackson Slater. I would agree with the unofficial depth chart right now that Volson, because he's got the experience, is listed as the starter. I don't fight that. But, hey, I really like what I saw from Fernando Carmona in practice yesterday. He got into it with Alontae Taylor one time. He got into it with Jeff Simmons one time. And, the scouting report on Carmona coming in after the Titans drafted him was he's got a little bit of a mean streak about him. And, you obviously don't want the extracurricular stuff like maybe he had in college. But what has this offensive line been missing over the last couple of years? A level of nastiness. Like, you want a guy that when the defensive lineman is chirping at your quarterback, you want a guy to step in and say, no, you're dealing with me. Kind of like a bodyguard, an enforcer in a way. I think an offensive line could use somebody like that, on top of the fact that Carmona shaved his head and now he looks like he is about to raid Troy with Odysseus as well. Like, he looks the part too. So I've been impressed with Carmona yesterday. And look, if whoever wins the job out of those 3 guys, you can't say everybody didn't get a shot, because they're letting everybody have a turn at that spot right now.
Hey, Julian, really appreciate the Odyssey reference there. But Jake and I have been, for the last month, consistently bashing this offensive line, not understanding why the front office didn't feel the need to address the offensive line more. But like you said, throughout practice, haven't really noticed them getting their lunch eaten, which is actually a good thing. And they've been able to hold their own. But at the same time, too, against this defensive line rotation, it's either you die or you learn to adapt and you hold up your own. Do you think the momentum that they have right now on the offensive side of the ball will carry over into joint practices, not just with the San Francisco 49ers, but with the Seahawks, Bears, and so forth?
I do. I think obviously this is going to be the first big test of the Robert Saleh Titans. It's easy to look good against your teammates, right? Like you know what's coming, the other players' tendencies, the playbook. It's easy to be impressive against your own guys. Well, now you're going to be facing a stretch of 3 different teams, as you mentioned, 3 different teams that are also Super Bowl contenders, right? 3 different teams who really just get after it in practice. And, it's going to be a huge test for this team. I will say, with as impressive as the offensive line, at least the starting 5 and then the guys who have rotated at right guard have been, the one area that I will have some concern about, of course, with this offensive line is the depth. I think that's, if there's a lot of guys who have raised their stock in practice, the one area where I say maybe would be, instead of a tighten up, a tighten down would be probably those swing tackle spots. I think that was the big hubbub on Twitter with Titans fans when J.C. Latham started training camp on the PUP list, or Dan Moore went out for a short amount of time. It wasn't necessarily, hey, those guys are out, but who do we have behind those guys? Whether it be Brendan Crenshaw Dixon, who's been kind of hanging on to this roster, Austin Deculus, who was signed this offseason, who didn't have the strongest year last year. And so I think the starting 5 and then the rotation at right guard has looked solid. I want to know what that depth looks like against another team. And I think we're going to get that answer here soon on Tuesday when they start those joint practices in Santa Clara.
Have you been as impressed as I have been with Robert Saleh's leadership? Because kicking Jeffrey Simmons out of practice on Tuesday, it set the tone. It made a statement. Brian Callahan had several opportunities during his 1.5 seasons as the head coach to kick Jeffrey Simmons out of practice and make a statement. He never did, but Saleh has done it right from the get-go, and we have no idea how the Saleh era is going to ultimately work out. But have you at least been impressed by the culture that he's trying to set and the leadership that he's displayed on the practice field?
Well, Parker, I could say this, like, yes, from a standpoint of it feels different. I mean, I hate to cop out and say that answer, but it just feels like, and I don't want to be disrespectful to the last regime, but it just feels like more professionally run, right? It feels like a football team that is ready to turn things around and compete. And I think with him setting the tone with throwing Jeff out, I think that's what you want. Like, nobody is bigger than the team, no matter what antics, no matter what pelts you have on the wall and what money you are making. We are all part of this team, and I think that really set the tone, especially at the start of padded practices where tempers flare and you guys are hitting each other for the first time. And I think he put those to bed and said, hey, like, there's going to be some instigation in practice. Like, guys are going to be chirping at each other. Guys are going to be hitting each other and trying to get reactions out of others. But you toe that line of aggression. And I think that really, really set the tone. And it just feels more organized out there. And look, Robert Saleh coming in, like, it feels like he is almost like a Army general, an Army sergeant, not from a standpoint of yelling, but just of a standpoint of, hey, I have command of this team. I'm going to run it the way I want to. And everybody is going to fall in line, but also buy into the mantra of trying to turn this thing around.
Last one for you, Julian. We've talked a lot about the offensive side of the ball. Who are a few players on the defensive side who've stood out to you through the first few weeks of training camp?
Ooh, good question. Can I cop out and say Jeffrey Simmons? No, I'm just kidding. Well, obviously, if I were a fan and I'm sitting anywhere at practice, I go straight to the defensive line. Like, that is a real treat to watch. And it's not just Jeffrey Simmons and John Franklin Myers, but it seems like everybody on that defensive front, the way they practice, the intensity of which they play, I think it's certainly a sight to see. I think there have been guys that have stepped up. I think that maybe we kind of forgot about in the mix. Jacob Martin, I think, has been pretty solid for a guy that's kind of been a journeyman throughout his career. And I really enjoyed hearing from him at the podium this past week. And I think, when we talk about those edge positions, going back to the draft, I think everybody was so fixated on, hey, the Titans are going to get somebody like, Arvell Reese or Reuben Bain or David Bailey, one of these big pass rushers. But now you see, with the strength of the interior that they have with JFM and Jeff, the edge guys, I think, are more than serviceable to make a real impact on this team. And so I would go, Jacob Martin and Jermaine Johnson. I also really like the addition of Cordell Flott. I think obviously Alontae Taylor is your CB1, but I think Flott plays a lot longer than he portrays, while Taylor is kind of the more physical guy. Now, time will tell if they will be the best cornerback duo in the league, like Alontae mentioned, but I think especially where that cornerback position has been over the last couple of years, specifically last year when they were just depleted with injuries, and, there's the L'Jarius Sneed experience that Titans fans probably have some PTSD over. Like, I think that just the fact that you have two solid guys there, I think the bar was low, but I think it's a step in the right direction.
Julian, going to be a fun week. Joint practice, first preseason game. We appreciate you coming on. Great insights, and we'll talk to you soon.
Anytime, fellas, anytime.
Julian Mininsohn from News 2 talking Titans with us here on the program. We'll react to what Julian had to say and wrap up hour number 1 after this. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you. Keep up with training camp with 1025 The Game for the latest updates, player interviews, and more as we get you prepped for the upcoming football season. Coverage of training camp is presented by Tennessee Brewworks, Permanent Energy, and the Music City Kickoff Game. Big thanks to Julian Mininsohn for joining us in the last segment talking Titans as we are about 2 weeks into training camp now. Parker, we talked about the offensive line competition, and I did think it was interesting that Fernando Carmona getting some earlier reps yesterday at practice. And we've heard Robert Saleh say that just because somebody gets first-team reps doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a starter. They just like to see, can this guy who's been playing well with the twos or the threes hold up against the ones? And so it adds a little more of a wrinkle to this right guard competition. But I agree with what Julian said. It seems like Austin Schlottmann is the center. He's the guy in the middle of that line. We'll see how it goes. Right guard is the one that really is a toss-up at this point.
And Peter Skoronski was asked about this after the scrimmage on Friday. Has Austin Schlottmann kind of sped up the learning curve for everybody on the offensive line? And he said, oh, definitely, because he played in this system. Even if he wasn't the starter for the full year, had starts here and there, he knows the offense because he's been in the system. So he can kind of teach it to everybody else. And the center, left tackle is the most important position because he's protecting the blind side of the quarterback. But the center is the guy that's telling everybody what to do, where to go, and that sort of thing, calling protection. So having a guy that at least is cerebral like that and has been in the system should not be an undervalued commodity. It's just, will he be able to, even if, because we haven't been talking about the offensive line a whole lot the last week in terms of, they look terrible in practice. So as long as they can keep it up, then they'll be a serviceable unit.
Yeah, and that's what we've said the last 2 weeks is we set a very low bar for this offensive line because you look at it, again, that just in terms of investment this offseason, there wasn't any. You brought in a backup from the Giants to start at center, and you brought in a guy who was injured all of last year to possibly be your starting right guard, and then you took 2 guys on day 3. That's basically all the investment you did in your offensive line this year. So the bar was low, but I will say they've exceeded expectations so far. I have not been watching practice when I've been out there and saying, man, this offensive line is just completely overmatched by the defensive front, which is what I would have expected. So Schlottmann, I'm not sure I believe in him to be a quality starting center, but clearly the Titans believe that he can be that guy for them. And I think you can pretty much pencil him in and say he's going to be your week 1 starting center. Right guard, I agree with Julian. I think it's going to be Volson, or at least I think Volson is going to get the first crack at it when the first team offense is out there against the 49ers on Thursday night. I would guess it's going to be Volson. But I do think that you would hope, and we've said this before, I think the Titans are hoping one of those young guys does claim it at some point because it helps you a lot more to have Carmona or Slater step in and solidify the right guard spot for at least a couple more years rather than Volson, who's probably a 1-year guy, and unless he just completely flips on a switch and turns into a great player this year. I think he's kind of your Band-Aid, and you're hoping that Slater or Carmona can eventually step into that role and be the guy. Who knows if that happens during training camp or during the preseason, but I think at some point that's what the Titans are hoping for, is that the young guys really claim that spot.
Yeah, Volson is going to be the starter at least to begin the regular season, unless something happens, unfortunately. But this Carmona Jackson Slater discussion is really interesting. You're going to want to work Carmona in because you spent a draft pick on him, and he was ultimately drafted by Borgonzi in this regime. Slater was still in the Carthon regime, but these are 2 guys that basically play the same position, right? They're interchangeable on that interior offensive line, left guard or right guard. But Jackson Slater has yet to take that job by the throat, and I know that he came from Sac State, so there's maybe a little bit more of an acclimation period for him versus Fernando Carmona. You're going up against the best of the best week in and week out in the SEC, but still, you would think that Jackson Slater would have the edge given that he's been on the team the last 2 years.
Yeah, Slater, I think, was somebody that they expected to take a step this year. And again, you can't judge too much into what they're doing. I think it's training camp and they're just seeing what works, and you're kind of rotating these guys and just seeing if anything clicks. But Carmona getting more opportunities maybe shows you that Slater hasn't lived up to what they expected him to do heading into year 2. So the offensive line still going to be a question mark no matter what. I mentioned it last week, Parker. You remember the Bucs game, the preseason game, week 1 last year? When the first team offense went out there and Cam Ward had forever to throw. Like pocket was clean, and we're sitting there like, man, we didn't think this offensive line was going to be all that good, but they really held up. Maybe things are looking up for this group. And then week 1 of the season hits and Cam Ward gets sacked 6 times against the Broncos. So you can't make any judgments on what this offensive line is going to be or what it's not going to be until the season actually begins. I don't think we can get ahead of ourselves, even if they look good in the joint practice or they look good in the preseason game. You got to see it in real game action. But so far, it's been a good start for the offensive line, considering what the expectations were.
Preseason results mean basically nothing. You remember the year the Titans went undefeated in the preseason, then what they do in the regular season?
Yeah. That was 2 years ago? Callahan's first year, they won all 3 games.
Willis was still here, right?
Yes. Yeah. So it was the year Willis had the 2 touchdowns against the Saints.
Yes.
I think they won all 3 games that
3-0.
year. Yeah, you're right. And then went 3 and they had just as many preseason wins as they had regular season wins.
And it's one thing when you're going up against your teammates every single week in practice, and the offensive line has surprised a little bit. But what will it look like in the preseason and then once you get to the regular season? Because preseason, it's true that a lot of your starters, if they play at all, they're not playing long.
Yeah.
So you're going to be going up against backups. What does that look like once you get to the regular season? Week 1, you're playing the Jets. Week 2, you're playing the Eagles and that defensive line rotation. What does it look like then?
Yeah, right. I think that's those first 2 games, like the Jets, you don't have Quinnen Williams anymore, but that's still a solid defensive front. Maybe you're facing Big Meatloaf, Tavondre Sweat. And then the Eagles, of course, one of the better defensive lines that the Titans are going to see. Those will be 2 big tests early to see. And the Giants in week 3, I mean, look at all the young talent they've got on the defensive front. Brian Burns, Arvell Reese, Kayvon Thibodeau's still there, Abdul Carter. That's going to be a big test for the Titans offensive line as well. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to text or call. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel at 1025 The Game for live shows and exclusive content. Coming up next, hour number 2, Peter Skoronski got paid on Friday. We will talk about that extension. We'll also get into some of the kicker issues that possibly could be plaguing the Titans. Does Joey Slye need to be replaced? We'll get into all of it coming up in the second hour. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 1025 The Game. Second hour on this reaction Monday. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman and Parker Kelley alongside you, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Fun first hour. Talked about the big weekend for Cam Ward and Carnell Tate. Julian Mininsohn joined us from News 2. If you missed that, you can check it out on our podcast a little bit later on. We're on the YouTube channel. But have not talked yet about the big news from Friday, Parker. Peter Skoronski gets the bag. 4 years, $100 million. We had said last week after the Matthew Bergeron deal, which was 4 years, $96 million, that it was going to be more than that. I said at least 4 years and nine figures, $100 million. And it ended up coming in right at that spot. The guarantees are big. It's what, $88 million guaranteed for Peter Skoronski. So he gets a huge deal, but it's well-deserved with what he's done the last couple of years. He is viewed as one of the best guards in the entire NFL. And this is the first time you've been able to pay one of your own draft picks since the 2019 draft class. The Titans finally were able to hit on somebody early in the first round on the offensive line. And it's good to see they were able to retain Skoronski for the next couple of seasons.
This was 100% deserved, and everybody. It was expected that if he wasn't the highest paid guard in the NFL, he was going to be among the highest paid. And I always thought it would be in the $100 million range. It's well deserved. I was very impressed hearing him speak on Friday night after the scrimmage. He's the same person that you drafted out of Northwestern, right? And they talked about. The money aspect, more money makes you more of who you already are. And Peter Skoronski is just a really good dude, but he's been durable, hasn't missed a snap the last 2 years. No, he had the appendectomy his rookie season, but he still played in 14 games. So he has 47 starts in his young Titans career, which is among the most, it might be the most all time for a Titans lineman before turning age 25. So he's been durable. He's been a great pass blocker, a great run blocker. He's thought of to be one of the best interior offensive linemen in the NFL, and he's getting paid as such. It's well-deserved.
Right. We talked about the top 10 list. It's not the gospel, but he's viewed as a top 10 interior offensive lineman, center or guard in the NFL. I mean, we get the text of, you should trade Skoronski. You can't pay a guard that much money. He's the one person on this offensive line that you feel confident about in front of your number one overall pick quarterback. If you went through and went scale of 1 to 10, how confident do you feel about this guy on the offensive line? I'd say Dan Moore is probably like a 4 or a 5. Schlotman and the right guard, incomplete. I don't know. I would probably say a 2 or a 3. Latham's probably a 5 or a 6. Skoronski, I'd say, is an 8, 9, or 10. And you need to have more of those guys on your offensive line. Peter Skoronski, the guard market continues to go up as defensive tackles get paid more. Guards are going to get paid more. The guys who are trying to stop the highest paid guys on the defensive line are going to get paid more. That's why tackles have always been paid so much. And now if you've seen teams focus more on pressure in the interior of the pocket and getting pressure up the middle, you're seeing those guards and centers get paid more. It's funny, the Titans resetting the market at defensive tackle and guard in one offseason. They've spent, in terms of total guarantees and total money spent, Titans have shelled out a whole lot of money this offseason with Simmons and Skoronski and JFM and Taylor and Flott. And I'm sure Wan'Dale Robinson. They have spent a lot of money this offseason. Now we'll have to see if this team actually is trending in the right direction when they hit the field for the regular season.
Well, if your guys do a good job, then you need to take care of them. And what's plagued the Titans is drafting these guys, but them not working out, them not making it to a second contract. You want to keep your guys around that you drafted, have proven to be among the best in the NFL. You got to take care of them. And there's been an emphasis, not just with the Titans paying their interior guys, whether it's on the defensive side or the offensive side, but there's been an emphasis overall in the NFL on generating that pass rush up the middle with your defensive tackles, with guys that are, playing inside your edge rushers. if that emphasis is going to be placed, well, there also needs to be on the flip side emphasis placed on that interior triangle, whether it's left guard, center, right guard, to be able to withstand that incoming bull rush. So extending a guy like Peter Skoronski, I'm happy the deal got done before the regular season. That's a huge weight off of his shoulders, and now he just gets to go and play how he's already been playing.
Yeah, that's one that we've been circling all off season. When was the deal going to get done? It's good to see that they were able to complete it on Friday, and Skoronski is locked in. I want to say through 2030. Is that right? I don't know.
That sounds right.
Let's take a look at the contract. So 4 years, $100 million through 2031. So he's going to play on that the 5th-year option next year, but does have the extension beyond that. So through 2031, Peter Skoronski will be on this Titans offensive line, which is good to see. We don't need to go through the draft classes again. I feel like we do that almost weekly of how bad the draft classes were from 2020, really through 2023. Like Skoronski is going to be the exception, but that 2023 class in general was not very good. It's just great to see you retaining some of your own talent, because the reason the Titans have had to spend so much in free agency over the past few years is because they haven't had their own guys to bring in and to keep. This year, they had to go get cornerbacks because you took Caleb Farley and he didn't pan out, and you traded for L'Jarius Sneed and he didn't pan out. So you had to go sign 2 big high price tag cornerbacks. You had to go spend on Dan Moore at left tackle because you whiffed on Isaiah Wilson and Dylan Radins and our good friend Nicholas Petit-Frere, who we'll talk about later this hour as well. So you had to go out and spend all this money in free agency for guys who are probably not what you would want to spend that much money on, right? You're going to overpay in free agency. You're getting more bang for your buck when you draft well and you extend the guys that you draft and develop. So getting Peter Skoronski in the fold is great. You need to see more of this moving forward. You've got a lot of young pieces who have shown promise, but it's probably way too early to say any of the other guys on this roster. It's like, oh yeah, 100%, they're getting an extension. So this is a big year for a lot of these young guys if they're going to take a step forward and they're going to be able to be a part of the long-term core.
Yeah, and there's hope with this Titans team because of all the young guys, the youth on this team that you are confident can be key pieces for this franchise moving forward. You have hope that Cam Ward's going to be the guy. Obviously, with what Carnell Tate has put on display, Chim Dike being an all-pro kick returner in his rookie year, Peter Skoronski getting paid as the highest guard in the NFL, Marcus Harris at nickel. You have a lot of these guys just going throughout the roster. You drafted Keldrick Falk in the first round, Anthony Hill at middle linebacker.
Kevin Winston. Yeah,
Kevin Winston, Cedric Gray. So you can see the vision. Now it's just up to these guys to go out and perform.
Yep. There's definitely guys that you look at on this roster and say, hey, that could be somebody that's around for a long time. But I would say now that Skoronski's locked up, there's no one else right now that I would say, oh, you've got to sign this guy to a long-term deal right now. We'll get into J.C. Latham a little bit coming up in the next segment. Justin on the text line says, with all this positive talk around the Titans, I'm dangerously close to feeling optimistic about this season. I pray that it will be good to great and not another brown bag season. I'm still keeping the foot on the brakes with optimism. I agree. With what you saw this weekend, I think you think the offense could take a bigger step forward than maybe you initially anticipated. The defense looks to be strong under Robert Saleh. I'm still saying I think this is a 6-7 win team. I don't think this is a team that's going to go worst to first and is going to be in the playoffs, but I don't think it's going to be a brown bag season. I think there's going to be a lot of competitive games, and it's going to come down to the margins to see who's able to come out on top. As we talked about with TD on Friday, young teams and teams that are rebuilding have to learn how to win. And I think there may be some games this year where the Titans are right in it, but just don't quite have enough to come out on the right end. Maybe you see it develop throughout the season and they start to find ways to win. But I'm not going full on hype train and saying this team's going to be good. I'm going to say this team is going to be better than they were last year, which again, low bar, but I think they're going to
we
take
can't do that. We can't do that given the way the last 2 years have gone. We can't come out and say that things are going to be fine.
Yeah, they're going to be, I think they are going to take a significant step forward. But again, from where you were the last 2 years, a significant step forward doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be in the playoff conversation.
Yes. I just think, like I've talked about, when you have a new logo, new coaching staff, new players, new stadium, all this new, that usually when you hit the reset button, there's a reason to be optimistic and there's a reason to be excited. Just got to make sure that excitement doesn't turn into just being completely oblivious and forgetting recent history.
And there are definitely lots of flaws on this team still, right? Like you're looking at all of the great stuff that you saw this past weekend with Ward and Tate. There's still a lot of warts on this roster that you've got to work through. Again, team's going to be better, and I think you're going to see concrete evidence of that in the wins and losses. But I'm not going to say this is going to be a good or great season. I think it's going to be a solid season for Robert Saleh in year one. 615-737-1025. Let's quickly go to the phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Edward is called in. Edward, thanks for calling. Good morning.
Hey, guys, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you.
Peter Skoronski, what year is he in? Is this his fifth year, fourth year?
Cam?
Skoronski.
Oh, Skoronski. This is his fourth year.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I'm getting to a point here. The first year and second year, the sports media in Nashville were ready to bag him. I remember specifically some reporters saying, what a mistake that there's been made here. Am I wrong about that?
There were a lot of people who didn't love taking the guard at 11. And when he didn't immediately turn into Quentin Nelson and was an all-pro, I think there was a lot of knee-jerk reactions to that, saying that it was a bust, even though it was so early in his career.
Exactly. Okay, here's my point. We got to learn patience.
Yep.
Okay? You said fourth or fifth year. Okay, Cam Ward, we've got to learn patience. That's all I wanted to point out. He worked out. They just signed him $100 million for 4 years, $25 million a year. I guess that's guaranteed. But yes, let's just be patient with the team. Even though I'm pessimistic about the coach, getting fired at the New York Jets and we hire him. I mean, come on. But I'm trying to stay optimistic. I'm like, you guys are selling me on him. He's doing all the right things. He got, kicked Simmons off the field this week. So, anyway, y'all are my therapy on the Tennessee Titans sometimes. I appreciate your time, guys. All right.
Thanks for the call, Edward. We appreciate it. And I think that's a very good point from Edward of patience is necessary with this. Now, patience doesn't last forever, but with Cam Ward specifically, this year, maybe you do know one way or the other. But I think that's very far end of the spectrum of outcomes for Cam Ward, whether let's say he leads the team to the AFC Championship game this year. Then I think you would feel pretty good that he's your franchise quarterback. Let's say they go 2-15 this year and he throws more interceptions than touchdowns. Then I think you might have a pretty good idea that he's not going to be the guy. Odds are you're heading into 2027, maybe leaning one way or the other. Heading into 2027, hey, he really looked good last year. If he takes another step, we could have something special on our hands. Or, man, it wasn't the step that we wanted from Cam Ward last year, but it's still early. Let's give him another chance. That's where it's going to be. He's going to get a longer leash. You took him first overall. Mike Borgonzi tied his career to Cam Ward. You're going to see patience there. I think the fan base in general, knee-jerk reactions happen, and it's football. There is less patience these days. But I do think you need to take your time with some of these guys. Not everybody matures and develops at the same rate, right? Not every player comes in and takes the league by storm. But also there is a point, and we'll talk about J.C. Latham coming up next. There is a point where your patience runs out and you have to kind of cut bait. So we'll talk about J.C. Latham after this. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Our phone and text line driven by Wilson County Hyundai, online at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. com. Peter Skoronski gets 4 years, $100 million. Big extension. What does J.C. Latham need to do to prove that he is going to be the next guy to get extended? We'll talk about it next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you. Talking Titans on this reaction Monday. Titans en route to Santa Clara. Joint practice tomorrow with the 49ers. Again, it's a noon Central Time start for that one. So excited to see what the Titans can do on the practice field with a different team. And then the first preseason game coming up on Thursday. Football is back. Is that a late kick on Thursday? I saw on NFL Network, it was advertising 10 o'clock Eastern time. Is it a 9 p.m. kick for Titans Niners on Thursday? 8. Okay.
8 Central.
That's what I thought, but I saw on NFL Network it said 10. Maybe they're joining in progress or something like that.
Oh my gosh. Well, I know there is a game at 6 on NFL Network before.
So that must be it, is that they're finishing that game and then joining Titans Niners after. Because I was going to say, I was like, 9 o'clock.
Good gosh.
That's a little bit late.
Yeah, you're not getting to bed any later than midnight.
Right.
Or any earlier than midnight.
And it's like, if I wasn't covering the team daily, I probably would go to bed at halftime. But, we kind of have to have something to talk about and be able to react to it. So I'm glad it's an 8:00 kick. We'll talk about that game a little later on. Big news from Friday, Peter Skoronski signing a 4-year, $100 million contract. And after Skoronski, the eyes now turn to J.C. Latham. Back-to-back first-round picks, 11th overall in 2023 for Skoronski, 7th overall in 2024 for J.C. Latham. And with Latham, he is not close to being a guy that you'd look at and say, yeah, we got to lock that guy up. This is a big year for him. And Parker, correct me if I'm wrong, I really struggle to see the Titans looking to extend him next year, right? Like, he would have to be an all-pro level player this year for you to say, yep, got to lock him up. I think it's more likely that he's going to have to play on that 4th year. They pick up the 5th year option. He plays next year, and then you see before the 5th year option if you want to lock him up or not. I find it hard to believe that he's going to have a year where it's like, yep, lock him up. He's our right tackle for the next 5-6 years. I think it's more likely that there's going to be another wait and see year for J.C. Latham. But I think it's also very possible, maybe more possible than him having a great year. I think it's very possible he has another meh year where he's just okay. And you have to start to look at options of, all right, maybe he's not going to be the guy, and we've got to look for veteran options or possibly to draft somebody.
Even if he does have a good year this year, it's a 1-year sample size of what he's been able to do at right tackle. I wouldn't feel comfortable extending the guy knowing that the sample size is too limited. So I'd imagine that's what would happen. You allow him to play into a 4th year, maybe pick up the 5th year option if it's a really good year for him this year. But I can't imagine that front office would be willing to shell out a bunch of money to extend him if it's only 1 year.
Yeah, and unless he is an all-pro. Right? Unless J.C. Latham just has a year where it's undeniable and you're like, all right, he took the step. He's our guy. I would lean towards you need another year on J.C. Latham, given what you've seen through his first 2 seasons. There's been moments where he's looked like the guy you drafted him to be, but they've been too few and far between. The injuries have been a concern. I think unless it's just undeniable, he has one of the best years we've seen from a Titans tackle in a long time, I think it's more likely that he would get extended heading into the 2028 season because he had back-to-back years where he looked really strong. Skoronski, you saw the ascension in year 2. It didn't start great in 2025 or 2024, but by the end of the year, he was playing like the guy you expected him to be, and then he backed it up with a big year this year to earn the extension. I still think you need to see at least another 2 seasons from J.C. Latham to feel like he's going to be your guy. Unless, again, it's just like he turns into Lane Johnson this year just randomly, which not impossible for him to take a massive leap, but I would say it's more likely that it's going to be a step forward, but not a big enough step that you have to give him whatever it would cost, probably close to $130 million for J.C. Latham at tackle.
And everything for him is delayed and expedited at the same time because he was at left tackle his rookie year. And then last season was basically cut in half due to injury. So you have to know who he is or what he's going to be for you this year and maybe that 4th year as well. But he's not going to have that same linear progress that Skoronski had.
Yeah.
It was much quicker because he's been at left guard the whole time, and Latham has not.
I think for Latham, this year is proving that he deserves to play out the rest of his rookie contract as your right tackle, right? Like this year is proving that he is a starting level player in the NFL, which I think we've seen. It's just, he's got to do it for a full year, and he's got to stay healthy, and he's got to prove, all right, that's somebody we can rely on at right tackle. Next year, 2027 is when he would be playing for that big time extension. But you've got to see growth this year. He's got to look the part of a top 10 pick at right tackle this season, because so far, at least for the most part through his 2 seasons in the league, he has not looked the part. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We love to hear from you. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. there was a takeaway from the Titans scrimmage on Friday, which was not positive. The kicking game. Joey Slye, Parker missed twice in the scrimmage on Friday. And I want to say someone said he came up short on a kick. Is that correct?
Yep.
Came up short from 50?
Yep.
We'll talk about the kicking situation coming up next. Do the Titans need to bring in some new talent in that room? They worked out Younghoe Koo and a couple other kickers on Saturday, possibly a move coming in the special teams room. We'll talk about it next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you. Titans training camp continuing this week out on the West Coast. Joint practice tomorrow. Preseason game number 1 against the 49ers on Thursday night. Titans practice twice over the weekend. Scrimmage at Nissan Stadium on Friday. Had an open practice yesterday. And in between, on Saturday, the Titans worked out some kickers. After Joey Slye, Parker just relayed to me the 2 misses he had. Missed from 48 and then came up short from 52. Joey Slye, as somebody who has watched a lot of Joey Slye in my life, he was Hokies kicker for at least 3 years. He is one of those guys who is inconsistent from inside 50, but you always kind of knew that the long ones he was going to come through with. And we saw that last year a lot for the Titans too. He'd miss a couple from like 38 or 40 or 42, but then he'd drill a 55-yarder. If he's coming up short from 52, you might have a problem. Because again, Joey Slye, his value is in the range that he has. That's why you moved on from a guy like Nick Folk a couple years ago is, yeah, he was really consistent, but he didn't give you that extended range that if you got across midfield, you felt like there was a chance that you could get points on that drive. They wanted to expand that range with Joey Slye. Again, it's 1 kick, right, from 52 that he came up short on, but that does concern me slightly that he is not making from long range, which has been his specialty throughout his career.
Yeah, and I will say that the conditions were pretty poor. There was some wind and rain. Still, you're an NFL kicker, and if you pride yourself on your range, it's probably something that you should hit. Now, getting into this conversation of Younghoe Koo and Joey Slye, I have both of their stats pulled up.
Yep.
Joey Slye, the last 2 seasons, is 0 of 4 from 50+. Now, he's played in 11 games the last 2 years.
Younghoe Koo is.
What did I say?
You said Joey Slye. I was like, I swear I remember Joey Slye hitting from 50 last year.
Younghoe Koo is 0 of 4 the last 2 seasons, but he's only played in 11 games.
Gotcha. Yes, he was with the Falcons for a long time, obviously. Played with Atlanta to start the year last year and then went to New York. He had the viral moment where he chunked one of his field goal attempts, hit the big ball before the small ball, and ended up leading to a turnover there. But for a long time, he was very consistent in Atlanta. From 2020 to 2023, he had at least an 86% make percentage. He was good from 50+, was 8 of 8 from 50+ in 2020, 4 of 5 in 2021, 7 of 11 in 2022. The last couple of years, like you said, has not been quite as good, but they brought him in, also brought in John Hoyland, who I have not heard of before, but they also brought in John Parker Romo. The Titans could go Hokie for Hokie if they swap out Joey Slye for John Parker Romo.
John Parker Romo, that name sounds familiar. Where did he play last year?
He's been around a little bit. He was the kicker pretty much my entire time in college for Virginia Tech. He was a kickoff specialist for a long time and then stepped into the kicker role. He was in Minnesota 2 years ago. Last year, he was Younghoe Koo's replacement in Atlanta. He went
That's where I heard the name from.
He was 11 of 14 kicking last year. From 50+, he was 1 for 2. 40 to 49, he was 1 for 2. He was pretty good from inside 40. So I don't know if it's desperate yet. Joey Slye was fine last year. He went 28 for 35 total. He was 9 of 14 from 50+. Not very good on Friday, and I do understand bringing in some guys. I wouldn't hate bringing another kicker into camp just to see what you get, especially in the preseason games, see how consistent Joey Slye is going to be. But kicker has been a problem for the Titans for a very long time. I know Folk was good for a year or two there, but before that, you kind of have to go back to Ryan Suckup to when the Titans had a consistent kicker on this roster. Vrabel, was it Pardon My Take, one of the Barstool podcasts where he went on there after he got fired and was just basically like, guys got to Nashville and just forgot how to kick. It's like you see these guys, Cairo Santos, and there's another one who is horrible here, And
was the Iowa kicker that was in here for a little bit? Was it like
yeah, that's something like that.
Dak or
Caleb Shudak, right?
Yeah.
He was in here. Vrabel was like, these guys would be great kickers elsewhere. They'd come to Nashville and they'd forget how to kick. And then they'd go somewhere else and they'd figure it out. The Titans have just not been able to find a good kicker with the exception of Nick Folk, who, again, struggled with the expansive range that you look for in today's kickers with is it Little down in Jacksonville, and he can make from 60 plus. Brandon Aubrey in Dallas. What's the Lions guy's name? Jason Myers, is that right?
No, it's not.
I heard them talking about this on Robbie and Rex.
Oh my gosh. It was the guy that played soccer.
Yeah,
and
Jake
Bates.
Bates. So Jake Bates is the kicker there, came from the UFL. So that you're seeing guys who can make consistently from long range. And I think the Titans chase that a little bit. You still haven't been able to find it. So I wouldn't hate bringing in a little bit of competition for Joey Slye. John Hoyland was with the Ravens. I don't believe he's actually kicked in a game before. He went to Wyoming.
Okay. I don't think it's time to hit the panic button just yet on the kicker situation. This could be a scare tactic for Joey Slye, bringing in a couple of guys. But,
right.
Hey, if you don't get your act together, we're going to sign one of these kickers. But I would rather have Joey Slye than – I don't even know that guy. I've never even heard of him.
John Hoyland? Let's see. John Hoyland.
And Young Wei Ku's been good, but the last 2 years he's played in 12 games, or the last 3 years he's played in 12 games.
Yeah, he is.
And hasn't made a 50-yard field goal.
Right.
In a game.
He got cut by the Falcons, went to the Giants, wasn't very good there. So if you're banking on Young Wei Ku getting back to that form of 2020, 2021, and we know that he's very good at onside kicks too, so that's like a weapon that you can add there, but he hasn't been that consistent of a kicker since 2023. It's been a few years since he's been one of the top guys in the league. So I agree with you. I don't think it's panic time yet. I don't think it's cut Joey Slye time, but performances like that, even in tough conditions on Friday night, like, you want to see more from your kicker, who they signed a 2-year deal this offseason?
Yep.
So that it's a guy that they believed in, they invested in. You'd like to see more from him heading into the season. And this week you get your first chance at a preseason game. We'll see what Joey Slye looks like on Thursday night in Santa Clara. Overall, though, I think the special teams unit, you feel good. Tommy Townsend, we got to talk to him back on Thursday, and he was great. So, I think with Bones Fossil, he views him as an upgrade over what you got from Johnny Hecker last year. Morgan Cox, of course, one of the most consistent long snappers in the league. Don't think you have to worry there. So I don't worry about special teams, but the one spot that you look at and you say maybe it could be better is kicker, and we'll see if the Titans believe in Joey Slye or if they elect to move on before the season starts. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We'd love to hear from you. Text or call. Our phone line's driven by Wilson County Hyundai, online at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. Coming up next, a couple of headlines around the league. Some injury news on the offensive line in Detroit. Injury news on the offensive line in Washington. We'll get into some of that and look more around the league to wrap up hour number 2. Coming up in hour number 3, we'll talk Hall of Famers. 5-man class inducted over the weekend in Canton. Drew Brees, Luke Kuechly, Larry Fitzgerald, Adam Vinatieri, Roger Craig. We're going to look at the players who are eligible for the first time in 2027. I want to get Parker's thoughts on who gets in next year. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up. 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5, The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley alongside. You're wrapping up the second hour on this Reaction Monday. Talking Titans most of the show today, but I did want to look around the NFL a little bit. Tough news this morning, Parker. Cade Mays fracturing a bone in his wrist. He's going to be out for 8 to 10 weeks is what Ian Rappaport is reporting. Former Vol for life. And guy who we've talked about that was a possible option for the Titans at center this offseason, now going to miss at least probably the first month of the season in Detroit.
Yeah, and that's a guy that I actually wanted the Titans to sign.
Yeah.
Now, there's no guarantee that if he would have been here, he would have had the same injury, but obviously not ideal for the Lions. A lot of injuries going around the league this time of year.
Yeah, I think we've seen more than typical. And again, maybe it's just recency bias that we notice it more as it's actually happening. But it does feel like there's been a whole lot of injuries. The big one over the weekend was Laramie Tunsil. Torn triceps, and Dan Quinn confirmed that he will need surgery. So that was tough news. I've said this before. I grew up outside Washington, D.C. and went to school in Virginia. So a lot of my friends are Commanders fans, and they were devastated by the Laramie Tunsil news. But of course, I get a text that says, Jake, what's your scouting report on Nicholas Petit-Frere? And
where do we start? And how much time do we have?
I had to go look back because I saw somebody had tweeted the clip of him not even getting a hand on, was it Rashawn Gary with the Packers 2 years ago?
Gosh,
where he just like stumbled.
Was that on Thursday Night Football?
No, it would. In the last 2 years, the Titans haven't played on.
Well, I'm thinking of the 2021 game where Traylon Burks broke out.
This was 2024. This was the third game of the season where Malik Willis beat the Titans. Levis threw the pick six. And like the picture of Petit-Frere on all fours while Will Levis just gets destroyed. Just horrible. So he asked me, my friends asked me, like, what's your scouting report? And I sent that video and I said, he may be the worst offensive lineman I've ever seen in my life. Good luck with that.
Worse than Jalen Duncan?
Yeah, maybe. And it's funny because this is a great conversation of who is the worst tackle the Titans have played in the last 4 years since Lawan, and I guess like Quessenberry was fine. Kelly was good. Conklin was good. Like that era where Lawan was on the left and you had a solid guy on the right. Since Lawan tore his ACL the second time, who is the worst tackle the Titans have put out there?
Dennis Daly?
Is it Dennis Daly? Is it Andre Dillard? Is it Jalen Duncan? Is it Nicholas
some good
Petit-Frere?
candidates for this.
Right? Like it's a conversation you wish you weren't having, but I do think there's a case that could be made for all four of them.
I'm going to have to lean Dennis Daly. I remember that game. I think it was on New Year's Eve. The Titans were playing the Texans and Malik Willis was starting. Dennis Daly was atrocious.
I think I've blocked that game from my memory.
Oh, it was awful. And I haven't been able to blot that out of my memory. I mean, just witnessing it, that was the worst left tackle performance I've ever witnessed.
All four of them have moments that you could point to and say, that might be some of the worst offensive line play I've ever seen. Just turnstiles out there at times.
I feel like it's between Daly and Duncan. Dillard makes a pretty compelling case.
I guess with Daly and Duncan, you didn't see as much of them because they weren't good enough to play initially. Daly had to play after Lawan went down. Duncan had to play after, I guess it was Petit-Frere who went down. But
out of that group, I feel like Nicholas Petit-Frere was the best one.
So he
the best one out of that group.
Really low
which is
bar.
a really bad.
Congratulations. You are the best of the worst. If
I had to pick.
With Petit-Frere, we saw more of him because I think the Titans really were hoping that he would work out. But he was really bad. He had all the traits, right? Like he was a 5-star recruit who went to Ohio State. It's like that is a big athletic tackle that central casting rolls him out and you're like, yeah, that's what a tackle should look like in the NFL. Corey, I think, says it best that he was just never a willing combatant. Like, he did not want to go hit the guy in front of him. And you saw that. I agree. There may have been worse from Daly and Dillard and Duncan, the 3Ds of horrible tackles the Titans ran out there. But Petit Frere definitely deserves to be in that conversation.
Gosh, what a conversation. I did not expect to be having this today. I really do. I cannot forget. It's forever ingrained in my memory how bad of a performance it was against the Texans on New Year's Eve for Dennis Daly.
Yeah, they all had their games where you left it like, how is this guy? How did somebody sign this guy to play professionally?
But you could also make the case too, and I wouldn't be mad at this. Andre Dillard was a first-round pick.
Yeah, he was.
And how far he fell from grace.
Yeah, those four guys, just horrible.
At least Jalen Duncan was a 6th-round pick. You don't expect much out of a 6th-round pick.
Yeah.
Petit Frere was third
round pick.
I don't know. Dennis Daly, was he drafted?
Let's see. Well, the Titans traded a 5th-round pick for him in training camp that year.
Oh, he was a 6th-round pick in the 2019 NFL draft by the Panthers.
Right. And the Titans traded for him in that training camp. And it actually, I mean, he was horrible, but it was a trade that you look back at and say, well, thank God they got somebody, because Lewan went down 2 games into the season. But honestly, I don't know if it could have gotten much worse.
So yeah,
they were
Daly
all
and Duncan being 6th-round picks, you don't expect much out of them, but they were awful.
Well, and it's funny, we talk about this and we're like, those are the 4 worst tackles we've seen, and we're not even bringing up Isaiah Wilson because he played one. He played one offensive snap, so he wasn't
that was
really
just the biggest bust in NFL history.
You couldn't put him in that conversation as one of the worst offensive tackles you've ever seen because you didn't get to see him play offensive tackle very much. So that was my conversation with my friends. Hey, they asked for a scouting report on Daniel Brunskill too. And because they signed him as well. And I said,
oh, so they're Saints fans?
No, Commanders fans.
Oh, Commanders fans.
The Washington signed Brunskill and Petit Frere this weekend. And Radens is the Saints guy.
Okay. I was thinking of Dylan Radens.
But
yeah.
Brunskill, I said, he's very versatile. He can play every position on the offensive line at a below average level. Like that's what Brunskill is. He's a very versatile backup on the offensive line. And then I said, they're like, what about Petit Frere? I said, he is maybe the worst offensive lineman I've ever seen.
Well, he may have to be.
And then right. Well, let's look at their depth chart. We've talked a lot of Commanders this last week on the.
Hope your friends are enjoying the conversation.
They do listen a lot, so I'm glad I'm at least giving them some Commanders talk here. The depth chart behind Tunsil. So Tunsil's hurt. Brandon Coleman is the next guy. Andrew Wiley's there as well. So Coleman was a 3rd-round pick 2 years ago. I'm getting texts. Oh, never mind. Not about. I thought maybe they were listening and we're texting in about this. But Nicholas Petit Frere is now on the Washington Commanders. We'll see if he gets any run with Laramie Tunsil out. He's currently listed as the 3rd-string right tackle on the ESPN depth chart. So.
And Brunskill is listed as the 4th-string center.
Yeah, there you go.
So neither are, I mean, I don't know. It doesn't seem likely that they'll make the 53.
Yeah, I don't think they will, but I just thought that was funny, them asking for a scouting report. And I just sent back that video of him getting, literally not getting a hand on the defensive end and letting Will Levis just get pounded into the turf. That's one of the most notable moments of Nicholas Petit Frere's career here in Nashville. 615-737-1025. Chad says, don't forget guys like Bobby Hart and Calvin Throckmorton, or who could forget Andrew Rupchich and John Ojukwu. Those guys, like
OJ,
like Rupchich and Ojukwu the last couple of years were not great, but I wouldn't say I'd put them in that tier of the Dillard, Daly, Duncan, NPF. And maybe it's because we saw those guys more and they were relied on for more. And you thought that maybe they could be starters at some point. Whereas Rupchich and Ojukwu, you knew they were backups, because expectation does play a role into how you react to these things. But that Mount Rushmore of Titans' horrible tackles will live on in infamy. And you hope that Latham and Moore. Right, that's why Dan Moore, everybody's just okay with him being here and just being an average guy because, like, man, could not be worse.
Average is much better than what you've had the last 4 years.
It could not be.
At least you know
worse.
what Dan Moore is. That's what I've been telling people. Like, Dan Moore is not going to get better. He may get worse, but he's not going to get any better. You know what Dan Moore is at this point in his NFL career.
You just have to thank God that he's better than what you've had for the last 5 years.
He's serviceable, right? If you're serviceable this year, that's all I'm asking for. Which is crazy.
Dan Moore has come into a great situation here because anywhere else, I think people would be calling for his job of like, you're just not good enough to be our franchise left tackle. And Titans fans are saying, yeah, you may not be here in a couple of years, but you're better than what was here before.
Is it too early to talk 2027 draft? Because that's where the Titans are going.
Yeah,
they're targeting left tackle.
Right. I think it's pretty clear left tackle and the secondary are the two spots that the Titans need to address early in the draft. And left tackle is by far more pressing, more urgent than cornerback would be. It's what? Gooseby at Texas, and then who's the Indiana left tackle? Carter Smith. Those are the two that if you're a Titans fan, I think you're hoping you're not picking in that range to get those guys, but those would be the two guys that I would circle for next year's draft. Way too early to get into that, though. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We've got one more hour with you on this Reaction Monday. We're going to talk some Titans, get ready for joint practices tomorrow in San Francisco, but also the Hall of Fame class of 2026 went in over the weekend. It's a really interesting group of players who are eligible for the first time in 2027. I want to get Parker's thoughts on who he thinks is in, who he thinks is out in Canton next year. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 1025 The Game. Final hour on this Reaction Monday. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you, broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Lots of Titans talk on the program today. Titans headed out to Santa Clara. Joint practice with the 49ers tomorrow. Preseason game number 1 on Thursday. We'll get into that coming up later in this hour. But the Hall of Fame induction ceremony was on Saturday. Parker, we have not yet talked about the Hall of Fame game on Thursday. What a way to welcome football back. I mean, you get Carson Beck dropping dimes in the first half, and then Haynes King with the superhero play at the end to win it. I mean, I couldn't have envisioned anything better for the Hall of Fame game to start off the preseason. It's
almost like we've seen that game before. Georgia and Georgia Tech 2 years ago that went to 19 overtimes. When Haynes King and Carson Beck were out there doing, hey, what a way to welcome football back. That's the most entertained I've ever been by a preseason football game. I watched every snap that I could. And when I heard the Sunday night anthem, something just like came over my body. I started to feel it in my bones. I started to get goosebumps. It scratched the itch a little bit, but I know football's not all the way back quite yet, but it scratched the itch. It was great. I was very glad that the game was on Peacock as well, because halftime had to switch over. I know a lot of people around here dealt with that issue. I understand news channels got to carry the news, and it was a preseason football game, but I was glad I at least had another option to turn over, because I want to say if you were just watching on WSMV, you missed a decent chunk of that third quarter. It was a great game. And the Hall of Fame induction ceremony on Saturday, Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald, Luke Kuechly, Adam Vinatieri, Roger Craig, all inducted. And I heard a couple people talking about this weekend, and I wanted to get your thoughts, Parker, on the players eligible in 2027. Who gets in, who doesn't? There are two that are easy, and I wrote this on the grid. I'm sure you see it, Parker. Rob Gronkowski, Adrian Peterson, no doubt they are first ballot Hall of Famers. Put them in. Easy, right? Like there should be no question. Gronk may be the greatest tight end of all time, in the conversation at the very least. And Adrian Peterson, what he was able to do over such a long period of time with the Vikings. Third all-time leading rusher? Right. Are you kidding me? He's in. No question. No, I'm sorry. He's top 5. Frank Gore's third. Those two guys, easy. Put them in, right? No question about it. The next guy on the list that I think is probably in first ballot, but I do think there's an argument one way or another. Ben Roethlisberger, Big Ben, is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? Youngest quarterback to win a Super Bowl, 2-time Super Bowl winner, 7th all-time leading passer. Yes, 7th all-time. Oh, I think if he doesn't go in this year, he will be in the next time. Well, the issue is with the way they formatted the Hall of Fame, they've made it a little more difficult for players to get in. And they've kind of limited how many players are going to get in. Next year, Tom Brady's eligible. And I don't know if you put another quarterback in with Tom Brady, because you're just going to get overshadowed by that. Breeze went in this year. I think Ben does get in. And I think you look at it and you say, yeah, was he ever the greatest quarterback of his time? Like, was there ever a time where you looked at it and said, you think Big Ben is the best quarterback in the league? No, but I do think quarterbacks, it's a little bit different when you talk about Hall of Fame accomplishments and whether they deserve to get in. I think with Phillip Rivers, right? You know, he never won a Super Bowl. One playoff game? But like all of his stats are up there with the very best. Did he win only one playoff game? I think it was only. He might have won one with the Colts. He beat the Titans in 2007. Might have won one with the Colts too. I think he's won multiple playoff games, but obviously he's never played in a Super Bowl. But he's the 8th all-time passing leader. Phillip Rivers, the clock resets, right? He's got 5 more years to wait because he decided to come back and play for the Colts a little bit last year. So he's got some time. But with Ben Roethlisberger, I'm going to say he's in. I think that trio of the 2004 draft class is all really interesting, of Roethlisberger and Manning, who are both 2-time Super Bowl champions. Roethlisberger, 7th all-time in passing. Rivers, 8th all-time. Manning, 11th all-time.
I do think all three of them are Hall of Famers. I do think there is the question of, are they first ballot Hall of Famers? I think eventually all three of those guys get in. And I think Roethlisberger probably does get in next year, but I do think that Rivers, I would say, probably not first ballot. Manning's a tough one. When is he eligible?
He was eligible last year.
Oh, he was, and he hasn't
in.
got in. Yeah. I was gonna say, 2019. He's been in.
He's gonna get in soon.
I think he gets in at some point. I think all three of them do, but first ballot is the question. And with Roethlisberger, I lean yes, but I think there's definitely a chance that he gets left out next year.
If he doesn't get in as a first ballot, he'll be in the second time.
Yeah,
I believe.
I agree with that. Some other names who are on, let's stick with quarterbacks here. Is Cam Newton a Hall of Famer?
With some of the things that happen off the field and personality, do you think that plays into this at all? Because I say, yeah. It's kind of like Antonio Brown.
Well, we're going to talk Antonio Brown because I think that one is really interesting. I don't think he's a first ballot guy, but I think that the conversation over whether he's a Hall of Famer, period, is
Cam
interesting. Newton? No, Antonio Brown.
Antonio Brown. Yeah,
we'll talk about that in the next segment. Cam Newton, it's tough for me. Like, I go back and forth on this because he did win an MVP. He
Played
did
the Super
go
Bowl.
to the Super Bowl. And if we're talking about peak, like Cam Newton at his peak was really good.
Unbelievable.
But he's 49th all time in passing yards, so he's not and he does have more than some Hall of Famers. Like Kurt Warner is 50th all time in passing yards. He's a Hall of Famer, but he won the Super Bowl and he went to multiple Super Bowls.
Yeah, won 2 of them.
Right. Yeah, right. Won 2 of them and played in what, 4? Lost to the Patriots, lost to the Cardinals. With the Cardinals to the Steelers. So I'm going to say Cam Newton. I'm going to say no, but
kind of the same thing, same conversation we're having with Big Ben. Cam's not a first ballot. I'd be okay putting him in, but it's not going to be first ballot.
I do think just the way he played the game, like you talk about passing yardage, sure, but when you look at rushing yards, he's one of the better running quarterbacks of all time, and the rushing touchdowns that he had. I lean no on Cam Newton, but again, I can see the argument there. And, you know, TD, we talked about this with Josh Allen. Like, if you put Josh Allen in right now, like ESPN said that right now Josh Allen would be a Hall of Famer if he retired today. Well, Josh Allen has less passing yards than Cam Newton. He hasn't played in a Super Bowl. They both have the MVP award. I think if you're going to say Josh Allen is a Hall of Famer right now, you'd have to say Cam Newton is too.
That's why there's like, what metric are you using?
It's
there
so
has
subjective.
To be, there has to be a lot of nuance, you know, when it comes to each person we're talking about.
Yeah, I'm going to lean no on Cam Newton. I'm going to say he does not get into the Hall of Fame ever, but I do understand the argument one way or the other.
There are a lot of these guys that are eligible that I'm just like,
yeah,
I don't see it
like
happening.
Some other guys who are eligible, like Le'Veon Bell.
That's where my mind went. Le'Veon Bell.
His peak, really
awesome.
Great. Like
awesome.
The 1 or 2 seasons with the Steelers, he was virtually unstoppable. But that doesn't get you into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
that's why
he didn't have that longevity.
That's why, like,
doing
Chris Johnson's not going to be a Hall of Famer. Like, I think there's an argument for him to be in there, and of course, he had one of the greatest seasons ever. But I just don't think you can put him in because the longevity wasn't there. With Adrian Peterson, you saw him do it year in and year out for a decade at running back. Like Eric Weddle on here, really good player. I'm going to lean he's not a Hall of Famer.
It's a long shot.
Gerald McCoy.
Also a long shot.
I would say long shot. Andrew Whitworth, I would say probably eventually gets in. Offensive line plays tough because it is so subjective, but he did it for such a long time. Did win a Super Bowl with the Rams, correct?
He did
in 2020.
Yep.
2022.
He was on that team.
So
and
yeah,
retired.
I think he probably does get in. There are 2 other names that I think are really interesting. We'll get to those coming up next that are first time eligible on the Hall of Fame ballot in 2027. 615-737-1025. Our phone and text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. You can call or text 615-737-1025. One more segment on Hall of Fame. We'll get back into the Titans later on this hour as well. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you. Hall of Fame induction ceremony on Saturday. 5 new members in Canton: Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald, Luke Kuechly, Adam Vinatieri, Roger Craig. Parker, you were talking about the Drew Brees induction speech. I was on my way up to Clarksville, so I missed all of that. I might have to go back and watch these because those are special. Some of them aren't great, but I like you said, I think you knew Drew Brees was going to crush it.
Just because he talked about his relationship with the city of New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina, which was, I'm amazed every time he talks about it, but just the leadership that Drew Brees displayed during his career, you knew that he was going to deliver. If you ever need something to listen to get you pumped up, that I highly recommend going back and listening to it. It was fantastic.
I might have to do that. And Larry Fitzgerald just announced, Adam Schefter putting this out, the Cardinals will honor Larry Fitzgerald at halftime of their October 25th game versus the Broncos, placing him in the team's Ring of Honor and retiring number 11. So not unexpected, but
Good.
Larry Fitzgerald's number will be retired by the Cardinals. We were going through next year's first-year eligible players for the Hall of Fame, and we've come to this. Gronk and Adrian Peterson, they are in. No doubt about it. Roethlisberger, we're saying most likely is in. On the next group, I think Andrew Whitworth probably gets in. There are two guys we haven't talked about yet. Let's start with Richard Sherman. Do you think Richard Sherman is a Hall of Famer? He is a Super Bowl champion, 3-time first-team All-Pro. He had 37 career interceptions. Did he go to 3 Super Bowls? He played in 2 for the Seahawks. I want to say he went to one with the 49ers too.
Would that have been versus Kansas? No, not Kansas City.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and yes.
The first
the
one against
first
San
one around,
Francisco, with San Francisco. 2019 season? Yes. Yep.
So he's one of those guys that I say will get in, but he's going to have to wait.
I agree. I don't think he's first ballot, but I do think Sherman probably gets in. And I think he's one of those guys who has kind of improved his image publicly since he retired. Like, I think a lot of people didn't love him. You know, the Aaron Andrews interview after the NFC Championship game, the try me with the sorry receiver like Crabtree, and he was always a little bit dirty.
He talked a fair amount of trash.
Yeah, he was
in the Legion of Boom.
Like the hit on
they all did
on Marcus Mariota here that I think a lot of Titans fans remember, where Lawan got in his face. Like, Sherman was not a very likable person while he was playing in the NFL. I think he's changed that with his work on like the Thursday Night Football broadcasts, and he's a very educated guy, right? Like, went to Stanford and crushed it there. Like, I think he has improved his public image after the league.
Even on Thursday Night Football as an analyst, I felt like he's done a lot to improve his image.
I think people like him a lot more than they did while he was playing, where he was viewed as maybe a dirty player and a guy who was going to talk a lot. I think people really like him now. I think he does get in. On the flip side of that coin, Antonio Brown is eligible for the first time in 2027. Do you think Antonio Brown, he's not a first ballot guy, is he ever a Hall of Famer?
I honestly want to say no.
Can you ignore all of the stuff that's happened in the past 6 years?
I couldn't, because you think about the fraternity of guys in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Like, that's a lifelong bond. That's a brotherhood. That is they have a very good image.
Right.
Inviting a guy like Antonio Brown into that fraternity tarnishes the image.
Right. I don't think there's like a morality part of this, but I do think there's an image to uphold, like you said, of the guys who go into Canton are the best of the best. And with what he's done, running off the field shirtless in New York when he was with the Bucs, and all of the antics that have followed, I can't see them letting him hold a microphone up there and give an induction speech. Like, I cannot see the NFL saying, yeah, we're going to give Antonio Brown free reign to say whatever he wants as he's inducted into Canton, no matter what his career was. And I do think his career is probably borderline anyway. 28th all-time in receiving yards. I mean, he did the 6-year stretch from 13 to 18. He was
best in the league.
I mean, he was ridiculous. Some of these seasons, like 2014, 129 catches for 1,700 yards and 13 touchdowns. Followed that up with 136 catches for 1,800 yards and 10 touchdowns. He had at least 1,200 yards, 100 catches, and 8 touchdowns in 6 straight seasons.
That's unbelievable.
He was ridiculous.
But the way things ended, I mean, in Tampa Bay, and even like before that, Las Vegas, New England.
Right. There's too much that's gone on with him image-wise. I don't think they can do it. And I don't think the voters are going to want to put him in there. He is, I think the numbers would show you, yeah, maybe he does deserve to be in. You talk about Hall of Fame. Were you one of the best players at your position while you were playing? And with Antonio Brown, the answer is undoubtedly yes. But there's been way too much that's gone on that I don't know if you can put him in.
Well, compare him to a guy like Larry Fitzgerald, who just got in, one of the all-time good guys in the NFL, one of the smartest receivers to ever play the football game. When I think of guys that are going in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, not all of them have as good of a reputation as Larry Fitzgerald, but to me, that's kind of like, that's the gold standard of the guy that you want.
Yeah.
Antonio Brown, despite what he did on the field in Pittsburgh, does not fit that description now.
Yeah. And again, there's no morality part of this. We just talked about Big Ben, and he's probably going to get in. Big Ben's had his problems. Ray Lewis is a Hall of Famer.
Right.
There's no morality for this, but I do think there is something about upholding the image of the Hall of Fame, and Antonio Brown would probably make a mockery of it. And I think that might stop him from getting in, even if that peak of his career is Hall of Fame worthy. I don't know if you can. I don't know if, again, as Gunner says, like we talked about, I don't know if you can give him a live mic in front of a national audience and just let him go
and trust him that he's going to say something respectable. Right. You could totally see him going on social media after the fact and just trashing the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Right. I think he has. We talked about with Sherman, like, and not being a likable guy on the field isn't going to take you out of the Hall of Fame. Like Sherman, it has nothing. His people thinking of him as like a trash talker and a dirty player, I don't think that really would have hurt his case, but I do think that people view him differently post his playing career. And
he did a lot to save his image. And with Ray Lewis, I view it as, yeah, there were his issues off the field, but it's decent enough to get in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but he was so good that you can't deny him a spot in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. With Antonio Brown,
I think it's borderline, right?
Yeah, it's borderline. I mean, borderline on the field, but off the field, it's so bad that you're like, okay, this is going to be a legit conversation they have, but I do not see the committee making him a Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Right. I agree. Like Antonio Brown, 12,000 yards in his career. That's ranked top 30 in NFL history. Let's see, receiving touchdowns. Where does he rank? He is 27th in touchdowns, and he might actually be pretty high in like total receptions because again, he had 6 straight years with over 100.
Well, that year that the read off, did he have? You said 136 receptions.
Yeah, he had 136 receptions in 1 year.
That's crazy.
Yeah. In a 2-year span, he had 265 receptions, over 3,500 yards and 23 touchdowns in a 2-year span. So again, like the peak, he was incredible. But yeah, I just think with everything that's gone on since then, you can't put him in. Going through this makes me realize that Derek Mason deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Like, I always thought that, but it's like, this has been more confirmation for me, like reading through the all-time leaders. Derek Mason, top 25 in receptions in NFL history. In receiving yards, he is 32nd, I want to say. Yes, 32nd with over 12,000 receiving yards in his career. And then receiving touchdowns for Derek Mason, I think he's a little bit lower in this one, but still relatively high. Let's see. 66 touchdowns, tied with Julio Jones in his career. Derek Mason should be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, if we're talking about Antonio Brown, who has very similar stats, I think D-Mace deserves to be in. And I always thought that, but like looking and diving deep into the stats, I put him in there. Give D-Mace his gold jacket.
Well, that 2000 season when he led the league in scrimmage yards, had 895 receiving yards, 896 yards from scrimmage added on.
He was incredible here. Best receiver in NFL in Titans history. And
had a 5-year stretch of 1,000+ yards. In 2003, his career high, 1,300 yards. Also had 1,000 yards in 2007, 2008 and 2009.
Yeah, I put D-Mace in there. First, put him into the Ring of Honor, but also into the Hall of Fame. That picture of him and Carnell Tate from last week was really cool, Parker. I'm sure you saw that we posted on the game account.
Oh yeah, I reposted that on my story.
That was really
iconic.
cool of the two number one wide receivers who hate the maize and blue. I thought that was awesome.
And Carnell Tate just looking yoked through his shirt.
Hey, D-Mace looking yoked too.
He looks good. Yeah, D-Mace looks good too.
Yeah, there you go. Get D-Mace in the Hall of Fame. We got there through our conversation about Antonio Brown somehow. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Back into the Titans after this for the final half hour of the show. Joint practice tomorrow. Preseason game on Thursday. What's it going to look like for the Titans out on the West Coast? Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up. 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you. Couple more segments left on this Monday morning. Titans en route to Santa Clara. 49ers joint practice tomorrow and then preseason game number 1 on Thursday. I'm excited for this joint practice tomorrow, Parker. I think you've seen good things from the Titans in training camp so far on both sides of the football. You've seen Cam Ward continue to develop. We talked about it in the first hour, coming off 2 of his best practices, really since he's been here. And especially in this year's training camp, the scrimmage on Friday night, practice yesterday looked really good. Can they carry this over against another team? I know the 49ers are a little bit banged up. This isn't a full-strength San Francisco team, but I think it is a really important checkpoint for the Titans to see, all right, is this roster improved enough to compete with one of these types of teams? All 3 teams the Titans will practice against and play in the preseason are playoff teams from a year ago and expected to be playoff teams again this season.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for San Francisco because they're not going to be at full strength, and I feel like it'll be a good ramp up for that Seattle week, the next week, because you're talking about the defending Super Bowl champs, and the San Francisco 49ers, when they're healthy, they're one of the best teams in the league, but they're not right now. So I see that, we've seen throughout training camp, it's just been a slow build. The first week not being in pads, second week putting on the pads, having the scrimmage in the stadium. Now you have a joint practice on the road with San Francisco. They're not fully healthy. The next week you get the Super Bowl champions in here. So it'll be a good ramp-up process. And then obviously you end the preseason with joint practice with the Bears. So 3 really good teams. We'll get a good gauge of where the Titans are.
Yeah, and I think it does ramp up. Right, you've seen the pads come on. You're in the stadium. Now you're going to somebody else's place with the substation right there. Like, how are the Titans going to handle all of this tomorrow? We saw last year right down in Atlanta where TD's talked about this a ton. That first joint practice against Atlanta, they got punched in the mouth, and it did not look good. What does tomorrow look like? You're on the road. You're in unfamiliar territory, and you're playing a very talented team. Again, you don't know who's going to be out there with all the injuries they've dealt with, especially at wide receiver. So I would say the cornerback room, honestly, would be one of my most interesting matchups for tomorrow in the joint practices. If Mike Evans and Deshaun Stribling, and I guess he's out for the season, but Ricky Pearsall was out there. If those guys are out there, then yeah, that's a great matchup. I think the thing I'm most excited to see is the trenches. Like, what does the offensive line look like? We've said that they've held up better than we expected in training camp so far. What does that look like against this 49ers defensive line? And on the other side, can this Titans defensive line, that I think the consensus around here is that's the best position group the Titans have, that's going to be the strength of the team. What do they look like against a different offensive line? I don't know if Trent Williams will be out there all that much. Again, at his age, maybe they want to, save those reps for real games. But I am interested to see what the trenches look like on both sides of the ball. Can the Titans prove that they've taken a big step forward in both of those areas?
And you're not going up against your teammates. You're not going up against your own blood every week. You get some new blood. You get to go up against a new team. We haven't talked about the Titans offensive line as being bad the last week. So that's obviously a good
step
thing,
in the right direction.
But they're facing a unit that just rotates and continues to punch them in the face. So they got to learn to adapt. Now, I don't know if Raheem Morris in San Francisco is going to run a similar style to what Saleh does. So it'll be interesting to see how they adjust to that and how it looks. So I'm going to be reading through practice reports like crazy. I wish I could be out there, but it's going to be I just want to know how they respond to that.
Yeah, and again, the practice starts right at noon Central Time. At least that's what the schedule says. So we will be leading up to that tomorrow, but plenty of reaction throughout the day tomorrow and into Wednesday about what the Titans look like in these joint practices. Preseason game number 1 coming up on Thursday. Robert Saleh has said that the starters will play in all 3 games, and I think it's probably the right decision. How much do you want to see the starters play out there on Thursday, Parker? It's game 1. I want to say last year the starters only played the 1 drive in Tampa. And it was a good drive. They went down and scored a touchdown. So it was a good drive, and they decided just to say, you know what, that's good enough. We'll move on. But I am interested to see how Robert Saleh maneuvers this in his first season with the Titans. How much do we see the Titans starters on Thursday night?
Well, Cam said he wants to play as much as possible, which you expect Cam to say something like that. I would say 2 drives. And if things don't look great, maybe a third. But I'd say 2 drives, and if you look good, pull them out.
Yeah.
Get some of the other guys that you actually need to see in order to build the depth of the roster. That's kind of how I would have it lay out, and you go from there.
Yeah, I think that you need to be flexible in these situations. If the Titans go out and that the first team offense carves right down the field and scores a touchdown, similar to what they did in Tampa last year, I would have no problem with calling it a night and saying, you know what, this is our first chance in a game atmosphere, and our offense went right down the field and scored. Let's take that confidence and move on to next week, and then we'll see what we need to do. But I could also see if you go 3 and out once, you go 3 and out again, send them out there again and just continue to get those reps. I think Robert Saleh needs to be flexible about what he looks to do in the preseason, because there's no perfect amount of play in the preseason for any team. It really just depends on what situation you're in and how they perform in those situations. So I do think I'd like to see more of the first team offense in the preseason than we saw them last year. But I also do think it depends on game situation and what you see from them. Again, if the team goes right down the field on Thursday night and scores a touchdown, I've got no problem with Robert Saleh calling it a day for them and saying, you know what, you guys look good. Let's get ready for Seattle next week.
And that's what I think they're going to do. I really think they're going to play this smart. I don't think either starter, the ones on the offense, ones on the defense are going to play very long, but for a lot of reasons. One, you want to get them in and out. That seems to be kind of the focus for Saleh, maximizing their time, when they're in there, calling plays that you actually want to see from them, putting them in situations that you actually want to see from them, at the same time, not risking injury, because you need those guys. You're not sure about the depth going into the season. And
Robert Saleh saying the starters are going to play, that doesn't necessarily mean all 22 of them. Like
Jeffrey Simmons,
right? If Jeff
might play in one preseason game,
Jeff is probably walking out under the sideline in a baseball cap on Thursday. Like that would be and John Franklin Myers too. He's been dealing with some back.
He might play in that Chicago preseason game,
right?
But I don't see him play. He might not play in the Seattle game, if I had to guess.
I would be pretty confident that JFM and Simmons are going to be in street clothes on Thursday. They'll get their work tomorrow.
Been having the back issue too,
right? And we don't know what he's going to be tomorrow in the joint practice, how much he's going to be out there. But I would guess both those guys probably don't play on Thursday night. But you want to see, and maybe like a guy on the offense, maybe Calvin Ridley sits down. I'd probably want to see Calvin Ridley out there, but I do think that saying the starters are going to play doesn't necessarily mean all of the starters are going to play. And we'll see how Robert Saleh wants to handle that. Again, it's crazy. We are 3 days away from the first preseason game, Titans and 49ers on Thursday night in Santa Clara. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Last call for phones. If you have any thoughts on the Titans coming off 2 practices over the weekend, joint practice tomorrow, preseason game on Thursday. We will wrap up the show coming up next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelley with you. Wrapping up the show on this Reaction Monday. Titans had 2 practices over the weekend. Offense looks strong. The Cam Ward-Carnell Tate connection continuing to grow, and they are headed out to the West Coast. A joint practice with San Francisco tomorrow, then playing the 49ers in the preseason opener on Thursday. Parker, we have not touched on the depth chart that came out yesterday, which I always think with these unofficial depth charts, you take it all with a grain of salt. They don't have to tell you exactly what they're thinking in these. And a lot of times I don't think it's even the head coach who's putting this together. He's probably just telling, hey, put together a depth chart. I'll check it before we put it out there. But it's going to be very vague on some of the battles that you're seeing. So like on the offensive line, the big competition that we've talked about at right guard, Cordell Volson, Jackson Slater, Fernando Carmona. Volson's listed as the starter. He is the veteran in that room, and I think the guy everyone expects to get the first look there. Slater's listed as Skoronski's backup at left guard. Carmona's listed as the right guard backup. But does it really mean all that much? Probably not. I think Slater is still getting every chance that they can give him to take that right guard spot. But if Volson wins it, then yeah, Slater's probably your backup at both of the guard spots behind Skoronski and Volson.
But I also think there's legitimate competition too at that backup. I don't know if you call it swing guard spot, right guard, left guard with Carmona and Slater, because like I said, Slater has not taken the bull by the horns. He's not taken this job, and people have been high on him. Coaches have always been high on him, but at the same time, he hasn't actually gone out and taken the position. Fernando Carmona's come in as a rookie and played better than expected, considering where he was drafted. So there is a lot to be to gather from this initial depth chart, but it's also not everything, because Nick Singleton is listed as RB6, but I promise Nick Singleton's making the roster.
Well, and I said to you during the break too, most coaches like to just push the rookies down in the depth chart when they release these. That's usually what happens. And it would be totally disingenuous to put Carnell Tate anywhere but one of your starting wide receivers. Everybody knows that he's starting at wide receiver. You've seen him with the first team. So, of course, he's listed as the first team wide receiver, but there's no other starters that are rookies that are listed. Like Keldrick Falk is a backup. Anthony Hill is listed as a backup, even behind Mohamed Diabate, who he's listed as a starting linebacker, but I don't know how many times the Titans are actually going to be running 3 linebackers out there. It'll happen, but he's listed as a starter, even though he probably won't be on the field all that much. Like that's where this depth chart, it looks like you've got Diabate starting, and it looks like you said, Nick Singleton is RB6, and Pat Coogan is the 3rd string center. But you can tell based on how Robert Saleh and Brian Dable are using these players that's probably not where they actually rank in their minds on the depth chart.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's kind of like the Tennessee Volunteers situation when they put out their depth chart. It's always like they name everybody that plays that position. It's either this guy or it's this guy or it's this guy. I mean, you can gather a little bit. I think there are some really interesting things in this depth chart. Mohamed Diabate is not a starter, so put that in the back of your mind.
Yep.
But I mean, there's competition at that inside backer spot too, because you got Cody Barton, Cedric Gray, Mo Diabate, Anthony Hill, who you just drafted, James Williams. I mean, they're all in there. I don't know if they're going to keep 4 inside backers. That seems like one too many, but there are some interesting things in this for sure.
I think they'll keep 4. I think the question might be, do you keep 5? Diabate would be in that conversation. Dorian Mousey would be in that conversation. He's a good special teamer who they claimed off waivers from the Vikings last year. So that is a very intriguing room. And again, I don't know if the unofficial depth chart actually tells you what they believe in there. How about Keedrain Callaghan as the backup nickel? That's your guy.
That's my training camp darling.
Yeah.
That's my guy. He's played all right. He did give up I think it was a post to Bryce Oliver, which wasn't good, but he's been running with the 2s.
He had a nice pass breakup on,
I
think it was Tuesday, in one-on-ones. He had a really nice play. So we'll keep an eye on Keedrain out there. Looking elsewhere on here, I just Michael Carter being listed as the third running back, I think is interesting. We've talked about Carter a little bit and how he does have the connection with Robert Saleh. He played for him on the Jets. They brought him in on a lower end deal in free agency. So he's listed as the third guy behind Pollard and Spears. But if you had to ask me who's going to make the roster at running back, Pollard and Spears, of course. And then give me the draft picks that they've spent. I think Mullings and Singleton probably get the edge over Carter or Chestnut. Again, because they're younger, they've got a little more upside, and Mike Borgonzi picked them, right? Like with Michael Carter and Julius Chestnut, you're not really losing much if you cut those guys and they get claimed elsewhere. I think you want to see what you've got in the young guys with Mullings and Singleton.
That's the conversation I was having. That's a crowded room right now. And I know Michael Carter has the connection, but you spend a 5th round pick on Nick Singleton. I just don't see them cutting him or releasing it or whatever. And with Khalil Mullings, we're talking about a guy that is valuable on special teams, is a converted linebacker, so he knows how to form tackle. And he's not going to, if he's RB4, you're not playing on offense.
Right.
So you're going to play on special teams. And if you can tackle, there's value there. And, He's been good in training camp. So if I had to pick 4 right now, it's obviously the top 2 are clear with Pollard and Spears. But I also see Singleton and Mullings making this roster, and who knows what's going to happen to Julius Chestnut.
Yep, I think
he's made a good career.
I think
for
he's going to be a
sticking
practice
around.
squatter. Yeah, him and Mason Kinsey just continue to stick around. Mason Kinsey listed on the in the second team with Chim Dike. So he is, if you're just going one by one here, wide receiver 7. Bryce Oliver listed as the backup.
Returner.
So, yeah, and
KJ
backup punt
Osborne
returner.
running with the 3s.
Yeah. KJ Osborne, Hank Beatty, who else? Restrepo's listed third string, Lance McCutcheon. Nothing unexpected there. You mentioned the college depth charts. They love the oars in college.
Oh
I heard Joe and Robbie talking about this
especially
too,
Josh
on
Heupel.
their show. They love the oars just to not let you know what's going to happen. And Robbie and Joe were right. I can guarantee you the first depth chart that comes out for Vandy and Tennessee, quarterback's going to be an Orr. It's going to be Brandon Orr McIntyre and Curtis Orr Berlowitz.
No, absolutely. We may not find out who's going to start for Vandy or Tennessee right up until game time.
Right, until they break the huddle for the first play. It's all right, kickoff goes through the end zone. Who's putting their helmet on? Is it Berlowitz or Curtis or Brandon or McIntyre? I think that one's going to – they're both going to linger really close to the season before we find out.
It's this Tennessee quarterback battle is much more legit in my mind than this Vandy. You're not paying Jared Curtis all that money for him to sit on the bench. I mean, he's going to start right
I saw
away.
someone saying Berlowitz had a really nice practice on Thursday or Friday.
But when Joey Dwyer came on, he said that Curtis looked better in that practice.
I think it's going to go back and forth. And again, I don't think Clark Lee or Josh Heupel are going to name a starter until first game September 5th?
Yeah, that's
I bet
just
it'll be
how
that
Josh
week.
Heupel is. That he plays everything close to the best. But if you're Vandy, you can't trot out Blaze Berlowitz. No offense to him, no disrespect to him.
Jared Curtis has said that he's fine sitting for a little bit. I agree with you. I lean towards it probably being Curtis, but I do think that they are legitimately taking a look at those guys right now because Berlowitz does have way more experience in the system. I agree with you. I think Curtis wins the job, but I do think that there is a legitimate competition going on there.
I think it's the writing's on the wall, and we all know what's going to happen with it.
Yeah. I would agree with you. I think it's probably number 2 trotting out for that first drive against Austin Peay. But
and it's thank goodness it's Austin Peay.
Yeah,
for your first game, for your first start ever.
That's what we said. The ramp up over the first 5 games for Vanderbilt, it's literally a step up in competition every single week. All right, you've got FCS opponent at home week 1. You've got a group of 5 opponent at home week 2. You got a Power 4 opponent at home week 3, SEC, lower end SEC team on the road week 4, then Georgia week 5, which is probably the biggest jump up you get in that period. But it is a nice ramp
Georgia
up.
Fans are going to remember Jared Curtis's recruiting process.
I think they might remember
you
that.
Think
heading
Kirby
into that
Smart
game.
remembers?
I would think so. That, and again, it's good that because Jordan Hare is a tough place to play too. I think it's good that he's going to get his first SEC road experience if he is starting at that point in Auburn versus having to immediately go play between the hedges against the team that he flipped on late in his recruiting process.
And for Tennessee, it's going to be you get the Furman game, you get the Kennesaw State game in week 3, but that week 2 at Georgia Tech, that's going to be tough.
It could be a sticky situation for them,
whoever.
especially no Arian Carter in that game.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's going to be one of the more important games on Tennessee's schedule early on to see what kind of year they're going to have. Before we go, 7268 texted, as did Robert Saleh address practicing next to the substation. I want to say he said it was overblown, right?
Like, he said it's good for the fans to talk about, good for the media to talk about.
But they don't talk about that in their building.
No.
So we'll see tomorrow. Again, knocking on wood that there's no injuries tomorrow, because obviously that will be the talking point. It'll be, man, the substation claimed another victim. I think we will be, I think we'll be hoping tomorrow not to see any, X-player has been carted off or is limping off.
Because if there is, you can only imagine.
Yeah,
the outrage,
the conspiracy theories will be everywhere.
Cries for conspiracy theories.
Titans will be out in Santa Clara this week. Joint practice tomorrow. Preseason game on Thursday. We've got you covered with all of your training camp coverage and preseason coverage right here on 102.5 The Game. Tomorrow, we are out at MTSU for a little bit of preseason Blue Raider football, their media day. So we will be live tomorrow from Floyd Stadium. Excited for that. That does it for us. Keep it tuned right here. Chase and Big Joe are coming up next here on 102.5 The Game.